Shall I start? Hello, everybody. This is Legal Meets Look Up and Beyond with our amazing host, Rob Mars. I'm Naeema Sajid, a solicitor and founder of Diversity Plus. Over to the next panelist.
Hi, I'll start. I'm Ruth Croman. I am the managing partner at McNabbs, a firm in Perthshire, and also wear a family lawyer hat for my clearly many past sins.
Hi there, my name is Jacqueline Moore and I'm a consultant at Thornton's, and for my past sins I wear an immigration lawyer's hat.
Hi there, I'm Catriona MacPhail. I'm a partner at Morton Fraser McRoberts. I work in private client, and I'm just pleased to be here with all of you.
Hi, my name is Lesley Allan. I am a partner with Kennedy's, so I am another litigator working in liability claims.
Super. Good evening. I'm Rob Mars, and I'm head of diversity at the Law Society of Scotland. So honoured to be here among some fantastic women for an event for International Women's Day, and looking forward to tonight. The first question I'm putting to the panel is actually to our founder, Naeema. So for those of us who don't know, Naeema, what is Look Up and Beyond?
Thanks for that, Rob. Look and Beyond is a collaborative project founded by Diversity Plus. Its goal is to study and better understand the barriers faced by women in the legal industry and beyond. Our aim is to work side by side with organisations to find and implement solutions to help break the barriers that affect female progression and retention. Now, that might sound like a bit of a mouthful, but really our passion lies in making sure that the profession is fit for purpose going forward, and that the future talent has all it needs to be able to thrive in the industry. So perhaps that's, perhaps a slightly less wordy way of describing it. But in essence, that's what it's all about, looking up and beyond for a better future for the profession.
You would hope that nobody opposed that, that it should be pushing a fairly open door. And, certainly in my time at LawSoc, we've seen some progress. I think we'll come on to that in the course of the evening, but there's still clearly a lot to do. Self-evidently, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing if there wasn't more work to be done. And I suppose to bring everybody else in, obviously Naeema's explained what Look Up and Beyond is and what it hopes to do, but why personally did you get involved? Naeema, I'll come back to you first and then work through the speakers, if that's okay.
Thank you, Rob. I'll try not to take up too much of the time so that the other speakers get a chance to be able to answer that question as well. Look Up and Beyond was something that was brewing in my mind for a little while, to be honest, but I hadn't yet put it into words or action. And once I did, it was that light bulb moment where you just think, well, yeah, something needs to be done about this. We all as women bought into the idea that over time things will change. But since 30 years from when I started studying law, whilst there's been some progress, for example, women now make up the majority of solicitors in Scotland. I think the latest figure is about 57%. But when I compare that to the fact that around 50% of my year at university were women, and that for a number of years now, we have approximately 2/3 of law graduates who are female, you think to yourself, is 57% real progress? And what is that 57%? That's the overall profession. When you then look at senior roles, only 35% of partners in law firm are women. So we're making progress, and some organisations and firms are doing better than others. But in my mind, the progress is painfully slow. And to add to that, it's not healing the inequalities. So, for example, the gender pay gap, the lack of life or family-friendly work practices, which now, in some respects, may actually be driving female talent away. So the real danger is that whilst we've made progress and that we may be the majority within the industry, is there a chance that we may actually be going backwards, especially when you look at senior roles and how much female leadership there is there? The way I see it, if this was a science experiment, which was not, and we're not getting the desired result, i.e. we're not getting women remaining in the profession and actually progressing to senior roles, we'd be looking at, well, what's causing that? And we wouldn't just say, wait, and time will heal it all. We'd be looking at, well, what do we need to do? What stimulus do we need to introduce to get the desired results? And the way I see it, 30 years on, that time has come. We're at a cliff's edge, I suppose. If we don't try to retain and progress our female talent, that female talent is likely to drop off the cliff. And then you think to yourself, well, where is the talent in the industry? So that's the sort of insights I felt I had and was able to share, to think to myself, well, how can we make improvements to make sure the future is better for the women that were coming behind us?
Thank you very much. I mean, your statistics are absolutely spot on, and some are making progress, but some are not. You know, perhaps most striking is I think that senators of the College of Justice are more, I think there are more men than there were 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember exactly whether it was 2017 or 2018. The point remains that one would expect a level of progress, and that doesn't seem to be occurring in certain areas, some that you've listed, and obviously there too. Catriona, what about you? Why did you choose to get involved?
To be done, even though we've made so much progress. I've been pretty lucky to have had great role models, both male and female, throughout my career. But I think there's still much to be done. It's all about being able to show up as yourself at work. And I think for women to be able to do that, they need a lot more support. There needs to be a rethink of how we work, how we adapt and how we thrive. And in that sense, that's the only way that women will really ever be able to thrive in the workplace, and also for workplaces generally to grow and to evolve. I think for young talent coming through or early career stage lawyers, they want to see that there's that inclusion, that ability to turn up and be yourself, be a woman, be a mother, whatever it is that you are, and to grow in your career and in your profession in that sense.
Super, thank you very much. And I'm interested in what everyone has to say, because I think it's really telling that, you know, different people may have different motivations. And Lesley, what about you? I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people are inspired by Look Up and Beyond, but Lesley, what inspired you to get involved?
I've been really lucky over my career to have some really terrific role models. I've worked with some fantastic women, and also some really terrific male allies. Thinking back, I can remember distinctly the conversation with a female partner who told me that I should pursue partnership, and made me feel like that was something that was open to me too. I also remember asking if I could start to work part-time more than 20 years ago, back before these things were common, let alone popular, and the male decision makers at that time in my immediate environment were all for it and wanted to make it work, and made me feel supported. It felt like I could, just as Catriona says, show up as myself. I could be in the workplace as a part-time worker, I could be in the workplace as a mum, and I could still be valued. And I really want to feel that all female solicitors at all stages of their careers feel that they have role models and that they have that support, that they have a forum where they can make their voices heard, and you really feel that people are understanding what it is that they need and what it is that will help them progress. And I just was really keen to grab the opportunity to be part of those conversations, and to be part of a group of people that could make those conversations happen in a number of different firms, a number of different environments.
Super, thank you very much. I mean, I think that's a mantra I've heard often over the years in terms of making sure that the opportunities that were accorded to you, and should be accorded to everybody, of course, are fought for going forward. There's no such thing as the inevitability of progress, as we can see so often elsewhere in our lives. Jacqueline, what about you?
So similar motivations as everyone else. I mean, I think what really was key for me was really supporting the next generation coming up. So you know, just because things have been a certain way doesn't mean they have to continue in that same vein. And I think really going back to what Naeema said, I think what's really important is that women are represented at the top level of decision making. And I think some firms really get that right. And I think the firms that do get that right see, you know, really key benefits on their top line, benefits on their culture, which is just so important. And I think one of the things I'm really excited about is what we can do with Look Up and Beyond, and what we can highlight and what we can research, and just really excited to be part of the project with everyone here.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And to close us, Ruth, what about you? What brought you to Look Up and Beyond?
Well, Naeema, it's all her fault, but yeah, delighted to be part of the group as well. I think for me, I've been it's sort of more than 30 years since I started at university as well, and at the time that I qualified, there were really very few female partner role models visible to me, certainly. Those that there were didn't have caring responsibilities, and I just really, just like Jacqueline was saying as well, want to try and feel like we have a responsibility to do whatever we can to work together to help those that are in our footsteps effectively.
Thank you very much. And I think there's a lot of commonality there, but at the same time, there was an individual story for each one. And hopefully some others will be inspired today and go on to join Look Up and Beyond in the future. I'm sure Naeema will be able to explain how. I like that at the end that you either praised or blamed Naeema, however you want to put it, for getting you involved. I often all of a sudden doing something because Naeema asks, and she's a powerhouse for equality in the profession. And if she's blushing too much, apologies, Naeema. The one question I suppose that is asked every year, and Lesley, I'm going to come to you on this, is, you know, people, whenever any organisation does something on International Women's Day, you're going to get some pushback potentially about why are we still doing it, what's the significance. I think that's clear to everybody here, it's clear to me, I'm sure it's clear to you, but I just wondered if you could articulate what the significance is, or the ongoing significance is to you.
So I think in my mind, International Women's Day is a sort of annual call to action. So it's a day when we can take stock, we can look back, we can see how far we've come, we can do that with some degree of pride, we can do it with some respect for the people that came before us. We stand on the shoulders of giants, there's no question of that. But it gives us the opportunity to say, well, how far have we come since International Women's Day last year? What progress are we still making? Where are we now? And what do you want to achieve in your firm, in your career, in your profession before next International Women's Day? What do you want to be able to look back this time next year and say you achieved, or you progressed, or you improved? And I think the role that Look Up and Beyond has to play in that is that we are there to help work with firms to carry that conversation on throughout the next year. So International Women's Day this year isn't just a one-day event that we all forget about tomorrow. It's an opportunity to start conversations that can continue through the year, so as to help firms find the best ways to make that progress that they're looking for, to open up those conversations and hopefully keep the dialogue going for the next 364 days to good effect.
Thank you. And I mean, I think that's a really lovely way of looking at it, actually, as almost as a way of measuring progress year on year is a good way to do that. And, you know, the nature of progress is that sometimes you progress more quickly and sometimes you progress more slowly. And it's not linear, if only it were, but, you know, you will stumble and you will rise more quickly on occasion. So I think that's a very good way of looking at it. Looking to this year's International Women's Day, the theme is inspiring inclusion, or inspire inclusion rather, and therefore I thought I'd ask you all, how do you think International Women's Day does that? And I'll come to Naeema first.
Well, I mean, you only need to look at who's on today to see why it's so important that everybody is involved. I mean, Rob, I asked you to host this event for the very reason that I wanted a male ally to be here, and that's how we view you. We very much view you as a male ally. And quite often when women's groups are set up, men will say, well, what's in it for us? You know, what's the point of us? And can we actually be involved? And inclusion is just that. Everybody should be involved. Everybody should be involved in the conversation, just as Lesley said. And it's not a conversation for one day. It's a conversation to be had throughout the year. We've said from the very beginning, and I'm sure my colleagues and friends on the project will agree with me, this project isn't about us. It's about the future. While we can share our knowledge, our experience, and our insights, it's not us that are the future of the profession. You hear phrases such as women pulling up the ladder behind them. In some respects, that's such a negative way of looking at it. What we should all be doing collectively, men, women from all backgrounds, from all different areas of law, what we should be doing is strengthening that ladder and making sure that the next generation is going higher up in that ladder. And that's what the inclusion and inspiration comes from. We're here to say to those coming behind us, look, we're going to make that next step just that little bit easier. We're going to make that run on the ladder just that little bit stronger so that you can climb higher. And so that I get my inspiration, I must admit, from everybody here. There's not one person here that I could not pick up the phone to, reach out to say, well, actually, what is it that I can do next? And you all know I'm a bit of an avid campaigner for change. I guess that's the polite way of saying it. But when change doesn't happen, we've got to do something about it. We've got to stir things up a little, be a bit disruptive. And I think the inclusion and the inspiration needs to come from that, from us all being brave enough to take the next step and just be disruptive once in a while.
I think, you know, that's so clear. And sometimes when somebody suggests to me or me elsewhere in the profession that we could do X or Y, somebody will immediately say, oh, well, you can't do that because, and they will list all the reasons why the profession won't like something, or the public won't like something, or it won't work, or the society isn't resourced to do it. Maybe all of those things is true, but we're not going to progress by doing the same thing that we've always done. You know, so we've got to do things differently. Now, any particular idea that may be awful, granted, but let's kick it around, make it better, and see. Maybe somebody else has an even better idea on that and can take it forward. So I was just going to go to a couple of others. Lesley, did you have any thoughts on how this inspired inclusion?
Well, one of the things that we've talked about quite a lot is the fact that in any given room, all of the people listening to discussion on one particular topic probably aren't going to see it the same way. And I think we're very aware of that in rooms where sometimes we are still in the minority, but it does think about intersectionality and also the differences between generations. We've been crystal clear that this is about a profession that's going to be ready for the future as best it can be for the future, rather than about us in our positions. And what we're finding and really enjoying is that the young people that we're able to reach out to think differently, see things differently, communicate differently, are very upfront about what they think the profession should be like and about what they want and need from it, to see it as a place that they've got a long-term home. So these are all things that are in our minds, and in terms of the way that we're approaching what we're doing, we are striving to be representative of wider society with the understanding that the profession needs to reflect the society that it serves. If we're going to understand the lives and the businesses of the various clients that we act for, then we need a wide range of voices in the room who'll be able to bring their insights and their experiences to bear and tell us what wider society is thinking and how they're perceiving things. So inclusion's hugely important in all of that. And it's something that we have at the forefront of minds when we're thinking about events, when we're thinking about initiatives, on the basis that issues like intersectionality and like the communication between generations are hugely important now, and only going to become, I think, more so as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Lesley. I think that intergenerational point and that intersectional point is very important. I see that in my other hat at the Law Society, dealing with trainees and newly qualified, particularly trainees. I suppose the major difference to even 5, 6, 7 years ago is people are much less likely to tolerate what they feel as a suboptimal working environment. That may not be a bad working environment. It's not necessarily corrosive. It's just, well, look, I get one chance at this. This isn't what's right for me. I want to go somewhere else, and that's entirely fair enough. It's very different to how many people who are even 10 years older had to deal with things. I could imagine if I was in that situation, my mother going, just get your head down and do it. Whereas that isn't necessarily the advice, and frankly, isn't necessarily the correct advice. Although I hope she doesn't watch this. But those generational challenges are clear, and we are seeing people much more likely to move early on in their career, not necessarily, sometimes for money, of course, but not necessarily for money, but much more likely to be for balance in their work life, or because they're stressed or it's impacting their mental health. And there are issues for the profession to face there. But before we move on to the next question, I just want to come to Ruth. If you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, inspiring inclusion just really, I think my own view just mirrors what everyone else has said. And we would like as many people as possible to be included in the conversations that we need to have. I don't think any of us here think we have all the answers or even some of the answers, but we're all really enthusiastic about prompting the conversation and having as many voices as possible, as many different geographical viewpoints, gender viewpoints, different firm sizes, different practice areas. We have a huge balance even just in our committee, which I think is really positive, of people with different backgrounds and different experiences. And yeah, everyone's welcome. And to me, that's where the inclusion should be coming from as well.
And a perfect segue. So thank you very much, Ruth. The next question is about how welcoming activities like this are, and in particular for Catriona, it's how men able to get involved, and what can they do to help?
Men can absolutely get involved. They're absolutely crucial to this. If we're talking about inspiring inclusion, then please, can men be included in this conversation? I'm so glad that you are conducting this talk, Rob. It's really important to have males visible and also involved in this project. I suppose we need men, we need allies to be there, be present, be visible, to say that I agree with this, I understand this, and I understand that things need to change. We want male role models who are entirely on board with the concept of the fact that we need to have equity, we need to have equality, we need to have progress. And for women to progress, we need men to be part of that journey. This is not about women taking over. This is about women coming along on the journey and men going along on that journey too. We need allies to be present, be visible, but we also need them to be role models. We need them to call out and challenge others if they see anything which is in any way putting blockades in the way of women progressing. We need men to sponsor women, to champion that kind of inclusivity. And we need men to challenge themselves as well and think, well, perhaps, could we do something a bit different? Maybe this systemic environment that we've created, not just men, but men and women, maybe we do need to adapt and change. And you talked about, that intergenerational kind of difference and difference of opinion. And I think that's even more at the forefront now. We need women to want to stay in this profession. We need women to want to be in this profession in the first place. And all of that requires some adaptability, both on the part of women. We're not trying to take over, but also on the part of everybody here. And that includes men. And just so that we can all be on that journey together.
Thank you very much, Catriona. I mean, Naeema asked me if I would chip in at this stage, and I tend to chip in throughout, so apologies. when it comes to this, I obviously been working in D&I at the Society for some time, and I'm always kind of astonished that men don't appear at International Women's Day events or gender equality events, because, as you say, it's not a zero-sum game. It shouldn't necessarily be about, well, if this enhances the fortunes of some women, does that necessarily impact my chances? It should be surely a way to help everybody, and that's always been sort of my drive, I suppose, in that gender inequality impacts everybody to the negative, even if in some ways it may be positive for an individual. So if you are on the right side of a pay gap, in that you are paid more on average, there's a benefit to that, but there are potential downsides to the fact that you might not see kids, you might not be particularly happy, you may be dealing in a toxic work environment. So, I mean, for me, if I had a magic wand, I think I know where I'd go, but I'm always taken with the issues that are being faced are structural, systemic and cultural problems within the profession. The profession is no means unique. I would imagine accountancy, architecture, medicine all have similar, although perhaps not the same entrenched problems. So we are a product of the wider society that we're in. And it seems to me that if we accept that there's a systemic or structural problem in the profession, the only possible way to solve that is a systemic and structural response, and it has to involve more than 57% of the profession. The 57% of the profession who are women are phenomenal. They do all sorts of things. There are many wonderful lawyers there. They would do a hell of a lot more quickly if that number was 85, 90, 95%. Never going to get 100. We may as well accept that. But, the more people involved in that discussion, and I don't know why, increasingly you do see guys at these events, which is good. I remember going to the first Women in Law Scotland event, and there was 2 of us, and I was the host because it was at the Law Society, so they literally needed somebody there to open up. So things are improving slowly in terms of that regard. Anyway, hopefully that was useful. Just moving on slightly, the group has recently put out a call for early talent to join the group, to get the next generations in. Why is that important, and what benefit do you think that will bring for them and by them? And that's for Jacqueline.
Thanks, Rob. So yeah, I mean, I think this is absolutely fundamental. 2 things are fundamental for this group. We need men to get involved, and we need young talent to get involved. And we put out a call, and we've got really fantastic response to that call. And really, there's so many benefits that young talent bring along. But just to highlight 2, we've really seen very high levels of engagement. This has really been from lots of younger talent wanting to. What we've really particularly noticed is that younger women have been wanting to bring in their male colleagues and get them involved about the issues that we've raised. As you've said, Rob, this is it's such an important issue, and there's been great enthusiasm across the younger talent for this issue. The second thing is what you picked up as well in terms of a different perspective. What we've seen is the younger talent are just so much more upfront. They're not prepared to put up with what we were prepared to put up with. It's not the sort of whole don't complain culture. They're saying we want things to be different. And of course, as you said, they're absolutely right. What I think has been so heartening is just some stories from the trenches. Some younger colleagues are working part-time, and when I spoke to one of my male colleagues about this, his response was, well, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I work part-time? My wife's a lawyer too. It's a responsibility that we should share. So I think, as Catriona and everyone has said, it's just really good to bring in that different perspective. And we really just want as many people as possible to be part of this conversation, because it's cultural change that we need. And so really need to get as many people involved.
No, that's super. Thank you very much. And the in-person event recently held at the LawSoc, there was a sort of steady stream of younger people heading towards the front bench, which was great to see. I'm sure some of them were volunteering, not just going over to say hello. So that's excellent to see, and that mirrors entirely with my experience that the next gen coming through really care about this, not just gender equality, but all aspects of equality, whether that be something related to a protected characteristic or whether it be something along the lines of social mobility, which isn't, that does seem to be, much more embedded within the sort of cultural makeup of the wider generation. I'm not saying others didn't have it previously, of course we did, but it does seem to be more widespread, I think, than previous, which is a good thing. Moving swiftly on, and Lesley, coming to you, and I think we'll go around the houses a wee bit. How is Look Up and Beyond? How is it all funded, and how does that work?
So in terms of the help and support that we are getting from Diversity Plus for this project, to Naeema for starting it off, for gathering us all together, for the time and the backing that Diversity Plus have already provided for this. Naeema and our colleagues have been fantastic, and we are hugely grateful to have their support, the hard work and the events and the initiatives that we've been involved in so far. If there is interest in working with us, there is a range of, depending on how large the firm is. The details of that are all on the Diversity Plus website. If you head to the website, go to the projects page and look at the Look Up and Beyond section on that page, you'll see all the information there. What we're trying to do is to make this manageable for as many firms as possible to be involved in. And so we're aiming for something that's kind of proportionate in terms of your firm size, and to make it manageable for people to become involved. We're also happy to work with firms who would like to collaborate with us on specific events. We mentioned the event that we had at Law Society, and thank you very much again for having us. It was a really good night. If there are firms that would like to have conversations and would like to have, as I think Ruth said, a range of voices from different areas of the profession, from different parts of the country, from different types of firms, we have those voices and are always happy to voice an opinion on any given situation. So if there are firms that would like to collaborate with us to speak about particular issues or to start conversations within their workforce, we are more than happy to do that. And the thing to do would be to reach out to Naeema or to any of the committee, and we will be happy to see what we can do to help with that.
Super, thank you. And we're very happy to host. I'm sure the Society will again. Just before we move on, I wondered, and just to come to Ruth, because one of the issues that we find at the Law Society, despite lots of effort, is we are often accused, unfairly in my mind, but it's not really my view, that we are Edinburgh-centric or Central Belt-centric. And it's not as if Perth is in the back of Beyond. It's not far away at all. But
sometimes.
Depends how it snowed, But as somebody who's, not potentially in that sort of central belt between Edinburgh and Glasgow, how can more rural firms, get involved? Because, there are solicitors literally from Annan to Shetland. So how can we get people from across the profession?
Yeah, and I think that's a massive challenge. I have to say, even in our little group that we have so far, we have a solicitor who's in Inverness. We have me in Perthshire, and a solicitor, Angela's in Dunfermline as well. And I think it's really important to highlight that this is not just an Edinburgh and Glasgow problem. And sometimes, to be honest, sometimes I think some of the challenges that we've seen and some of the stories that have been told round our table, effectively, can be more pronounced in small firms. They can be more pronounced in rural firms as well. And so really just, again, harping back to in some ways that what I was saying earlier about having as many voices included as possible. I think it's really important that we don't just focus on this as a big firm problem and it's all about billable hours. And undoubtedly, that's a massive part of this, and the cultural issues that we've touched on. But this is an all of us issue. I think, and that is wherever you practice, as you say, whether it's in Shetland and Fries, peoples all across Scotland, there are challenges there.
Super, yeah, and I think that's a really important point to hone in on, because we're very aware at LSS where we've got 13,000 members, and although the majority are in Scotland, not all are, and they really are all over the country. The bigger firms are very important, but they make up a large minority, but not by no means the majority of the profession. And similarly, the in-house population is an incredibly diverse place. You go from the biggest single employer of solicitors in the Crown through to individuals who are essentially a sole practitioner, in the sense that they are the only lawyer in their business, and probably have more in common with your sole practitioner in that regard than even if they are in a large business. So it's really difficult for any organisation to get that right. So it's great to see you thinking about that so early on in your journey. Naeema, did you have anything that we haven't said?
I think what the others have said is really, really important. When it comes to funding, Diversity Plus and Look and Beyond is the vehicle. We need more drivers there, and we need paying passengers, really. We need more people to invest. Energy we have plenty of, but at the end of the day, we need to keep up the work we're doing. We don't just want to only, whilst it's good to hold events and have conversations, we actually want to turn those conversations into some sort of action. We want to be able to do research. We want to be able to learn more about what are the issues out there, and then work together to find the solutions. And to do that, of course, you need funding. And so it's very, very important that we get that buy-in from organisations, from businesses, because everybody's going to benefit in the end. And it's trying to get the passengers, the drivers, onto the journey with us and help us to navigate the way forward. So very much, the funding will, of course, be very, very important, especially when my energy runs out. So I think we'll need even more funding when it comes to that, and it will run out. I'm not getting any younger.
I'm not sure I believe that. I think we've heard a little about this, but just to really focus so those who are listening can see a little more. I mean, what are the benefits to those that support the project? What are the benefits that for those people? And again, Lesley, I think you had some thoughts on this, so to you.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, the obvious benefit for people who support this is it's kind of putting up your banner and saying, I'm interested in this, I want to talk about this. This is an issue that we think is important. Our firm thinks this is important. We want to be involved in these conversations. And that's an important signal to run up for your own staff. It's an important signal to run up for recruitment, to let people who are looking at coming into your business know that these are issues that you're alive to and that you're talking about, that you think are important. It's an important signal to run up for your clients as well, so that they can see that you are alive to these issues. Firms are very much interested in their own DEI projects and what they're able to do, but this is a way of tapping into a conversation with other firms, with other lawyers. It's a way to share learning. It's a way to share insights and experiences. And in terms of diversity, firm to firm, it allows sharing of experiences and insights from different geographical areas, from different areas of practice, from smaller firms to larger firms and vice versa. And all of that has to be an overall gain for the profession if we can find ways to facilitate sharing of that information. What we are keen to do is to allow the firms who are working with us to be able to tap into any resource that we're able to provide. And as Naeema says, as the project moves forward and we're able to become involved in research and those sorts of approaches to these questions, that's information that we would want to make available to those who are coming along with us. And in the meantime, we do want to be able to share information and to share what we are gaining with all of those people who would like to be part of this conversation, part of this this progress that we're pushing forwards.
Super, and it's interesting. Again, you raised the point about firms of all sizes, because it interests me that, you know, actually in many ways that the hardest place to solve problems is at the biggest entities, because you're turning around an oil tanker, whereas sometimes potentially smaller entities can really move much more nimbly. I reminded years ago, went to a conference and a guy stood up and said, look, we have total flexi time, total flexi holiday. He was quite a brash guy from England. And this went down, you know, not particularly well with a group of practitioners from Scotland, mostly men. And somebody asked him a question about how did it work. And he said, well, my top earnings last year, she took 15 weeks holiday. And it was just like anathema. And he said, I don't care. The issue is I have to set the targets correctly. She was my top earner last year. Maybe she's my top earner because she took 15 weeks holiday. You know, obviously, I mean, it can't have ice whatsoever. But this was, I don't know, he might have been a sole partner, maybe a few partners. You know, it wasn't by no means a big firm. And he said it won't work for everyone. We do most of our work remotely. We do international divorces. It's not the same as going up to court. I get that. But it was really interesting. This was a small firm. And he said, look, they can work when they want, not when they want, as long as they hit the targets. And he said, it's up to me to make sure the targets are right. It's up to them to hit them. But if she wants to take 16 weeks, I don't care, you know, because she's doing what I need her to do. Obviously, that didn't really take off. Although I think we'd all like 16 weeks holiday. But, you know, it's a perfect example that sometimes small firms can act much more nimbly than, you know, organisations that have offices in Dundee, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Inverness, wherever it may be. Did anyone else want to come in on that particular point? Or
I think I'll just say a few words, and that is that it's well researched that, you know, organisations, firms that are more diverse and inclusive are a benefit in so many ways. In terms of those that are ethnically more diverse, those that have more female leadership, they do better all round. They have a better culture. They do better in terms of productivity, and as a result of which their profitability is better. So it's a no-brainer. And also when you think about the fact that the future of the profession is female, with 57%, and that seems to increase year on year on. So why would you not invest in that talent? When I think about it, even if I think about it from the point of view of running family businesses, the talent you have, you invest in, because that is the talent of the business. That is a talent that is actually going to get you the best results going forward. So I always find it very, very, I find it almost like mind-boggling. Why do you not invest in the talent you already have as opposed to lose it? So I guess that, and I just think to myself, that's a no-brainer. I would want to invest in that talent, and I would want to invest in this project for that very reason. And everybody else has spoken about intergenerational intersectionality and the geographical barriers. And they are all barriers that we have to overcome if we want the talent to thrive, the future talent to thrive, because the future talent is not about going into offices 5 days a week and being there all hours. Future talent has its own demands and needs. And if we don't meet that, then we're going to lose it. So it's really, really investing in what we have to make sure we're future-proofing the profession.
I suppose from my perspective, law firms, like all businesses, are just people businesses. We are the people that are in them. And if we don't allow the people that show up to work to be the people that they want to be, they're never going to be as productive as they could be. And I think your point there, Rob, about the person who took 15 weeks holiday is apt to show that productivity should be measured in new ways. Let's think about productivity in entirely different ways. How can we go about that? Just because it's not what we've always done doesn't mean it's not going to work. And we should give things a try. And if it adapts to allow people to be themselves and show up as themselves, then perfect.
Super, thank you very much. I mean, that seems obvious to me in that it's mind-boggling, literally mind-boggling, that organisations spend, particularly the largest organisations, spend so much time and effort recruiting new talent. You start recruiting them in third year or something, pay for the diploma, pay them during the traineeship, work them hard, fair enough, give them a better NQ salary, and then build a business that is almost structured to drive them out at some point over the next 10 to 15 years. It's almost a case study for a business school. Of course, it works very well. You know, the top end, you know, for those at the top, it can work very well. So the desire to change is never necessarily going to come from there, but it does seem sort of as if these things don't necessarily all add together. However, to finish us off, what are your next steps? Naeema, I'll come to you first, and then you can all dive in. Whoever wants to go next can go next. I will give up chairing at that stage and allow you to be as free as you wish.
Well, we've got off to a really good start. You know, we've got a great team here who put in an awful lot of energy, an awful lot of time commitment. I mean, our WhatsApp conversations usually only get started at 10 o'clock, and then they go into the small hours of the morning. Now, I'm not saying that's healthy, but for us it is quite healthy because we let off quite a lot of steam on these conversations and we get some of the best ideas. Catriona was talking about innovation. It's so important. We're an industry of people. It's all about people, and if we don't invest in people, then, you know, we're losing that talent. What are our next steps? Our next steps are to make sure we get more people on that journey with us. We've spoken about cultural, structural, systemic barriers. The reality is, the way the businesses within the legal sector were created are for a bygone era, and to a certain degree, we need to actually dismantle those structures and build the foundations with equality in mind, because it wasn't built with women being the majority of talent in the industry. So it was built for an era where women were very far and in between in the industry. So to a certain degree, we're having to go back and dismantle these structures and start with a foundation of equity and equality. So going forward, what are our next steps is to do just that, get more people involved in the project, get more funding for the project so that we can get to that next level. The two events we've done were so well received. I must admit, I was quite taken aback and very, very pleased at how well they've been received. But it's getting to the next level, keeping that momentum up, keeping that energy up, and then, of course, having the resources to put that energy and momentum into action. So whilst we all want to talk about it, what are we going to do? We know about some of the problems. We don't know enough about them. We don't know exactly how to find what the solutions are. Sometimes we ask the right questions. Sometimes we're not sure what the right question is. We're still learning, and we're learning from all those that are getting on board with us. So the next step is to actually put some of that energy and momentum into action. How do we go about making changes? How do we make changes for the better? And most importantly, those changes that have to be meaningful and lasting changes, so that we can walk away with a legacy to say, yes, we actually left it better than how we found it. So those are the next steps. And we're hoping after decision makers and leaders have heard this conversation, we're hoping they'll reach out to us and go on that journey with us and help us to navigate to find those solutions and those answers.
I hope so too. Ruth, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely echo what Naeema said. I have to say, I mean, our little WhatsApp group that we have sort of informal conversations from having joined the committee that we have, and the community, I suppose, might be a better word to describe it. But when I joined sort of in autumn last year, the only person I had ever come across before was Naeema, when she had a family law hat on as well. But it's been really interesting. It's been really inspiring to hear and to develop relationships with people and other women in different practice areas, different experiences, different firm sizes, and we just want to continue that conversation. I think any of us on our community, rather than our committee, would be delighted to speak to anybody who was interested in exploring further and having that conversation, sharing experiences, because as much as we have quite a diverse experience, there is always more to learn, and we're just really keen to continue that.
Thank you very much, Ruth. I'm intrigued by this WhatsApp group, to be honest. I'm sure many on the call are to see exactly what, but we won't. What goes on in WhatsApp stays on WhatsApp, as we've recently learned. Jacqueline, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I think, well, firstly, to thank you for doing such an excellent job tonight. Thanks for being such a great ally. Just thanks to everyone who's been listening. Thanks to those who've been involved. We're really hoping that law firms will hear this, will want to get involved, and will encourage lawyers to get involved. Yeah, as Naeema said, let's be disruptive. Sometimes when I think of this, I think about listening to the captain of the England Women's Football Club. And she was saying, you know, why does women's football look so different? Because it evolved at a completely different time. And why is, you know, the behaviours, both of the fans, of the players, why does it all just look so different? And I think, you know, they recreated something quite special there. And I think there's sort of similar veins that go through what we're trying to do here, which is just break down some of the molds, break down some of the past behaviours. And I think the most absolutely important thing of all is it's a positive, it's really a positive and forward looking. And we want to look at benefits and we want to shout about the benefits. We don't want to be looking into the past, we just want to be looking forwards. And that really is a big message that's coming loud and clear from the younger people that are getting involved and the men that are getting involved. So yeah, it's all very positive.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and thank you in particular for being the person to mention the England football team. Normally that's me on any call, so it's good that somebody else has done it for once. Lesley, what about you?
The immediate next step that I'm really looking forward to is following our last event. We have been working quite hard on gathering together young people who are at the beginning of their careers, who are going to want to get involved in this conversation. I'm so looking forward to seeing what comes of that. I think it's going to be great fun. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And in terms of next steps otherwise, I guess what I would like to think is that when it comes to International Women's Day next year, we will be able to look back and say, look, these are the things that happened, these are the things that people did, these are the conversations that took place, and this is what's come of them. I'm just excited to see what the next year's going to bring.
Super. And to finish us off, Catriona.
I suppose in terms of next steps for me, it would be welcoming anyone to this conversation. And as I said earlier, particularly male leaders, decision makers, my ask of you is come and join us, come and listen to the conversation, come and be part of it. I said we're all aware of the mantra, if you can't see it, you can't be it. But doesn't mean we're blind to everything else. So if we can see a strong male leader who's joining in the conversation, then that speaks volumes as well. And young, or just early stage career talent will see that too, and they will appreciate it and understand what sort of organization that you're part of as a man who's involved in this conversation as well.
Super. What a great note to end on. I will say I always do this whenever I'm involved in an International Women's Day event, because somebody asks. International Men's Day is on the 19th of November. You normally get some question about that. It's important we celebrate that too, but I normally get that question somewhat facetiously at some point. So just answering it before we get it. And it's important too, but it's just to get it out there. And Naeema, just to finish off, was there anything you wanted to say before we all say goodnight for our evenings?
I think a huge thank you to everybody for sparing your very precious time this evening to do this call. It's been lovely hearing everybody's thoughts on it, and yes, I was blushing a little bit with all the praise that was coming my way. Whether you have been forced into this project or whether you have come by free choice, you can guess by the smiles and the grinning from the screen I can see before me. So, but it's honestly, I never ever thought it would take off the way that it did. It was a little daily reminder to myself that while I was in the profession, I didn't see people like me. We spoke about role models. The reality is I didn't have a role model. I didn't think, what is a role model? And if I was to be honest, the role model I did have was my younger sister, who's 3 years younger. And there is no way I'm going to let her think that she can be my role model when let's face it, I'm the oldest sibling here. So I didn't see women like me ahead of me, which is something that's changing, thankfully, but it needs to change more. When someone came to me and said, would you join a certain group because there's no one like you in the profession? I looked at them in surprise. I thought, wait a minute, I've been in this profession 20 years and you're telling me there's no female partner of colour in any of the law firms in Scotland? And they just looked at me and shook their head and said, no, not that we know of. That needs to change. So Look Up and Beyond is all about looking up from your desk, looking up from your devices, looking up from your court papers, and looking at what is there, what's ahead of you, what's coming at you, and how is it that we make improvements. And that's what this is about. And I'm just so grateful for everybody that's coming on this journey. And the aim is that I can pass on whatever it is you call it. I can't even remember. I'm having that foggy brain moment. Yes, it happens to all of us, regardless of our background. It happens to us all. But I want to be able to pass on to the next generation and to be able to say, I did a little bit of something that actually did some good, and leave it in a fitter state than perhaps it is just now. So is that a good enough note to end things on?
I think that's a pretty good way to end. I think the rest of the panel and many in the profession would agree that you've already done a considerable amount, Naeema. Well, everybody who's joining in when they're listening to this, thank you for listening. Thank you to Catriona, Lesley, Jacqueline, Ruth, and Naeema. Thank you to Hey Legal for helping us out with their technological expertise. And thank you to you all. So have a good evening and good night.